Hi, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. I have Alex here.
Hello.
Yes, and we're so happy that he's here. And I brought him in because, well, I needed an advisor. I needed a
Mhm.
consultation. Um, so if you know, a couple videos ago, I took the "Am I fat phobic" quiz, and turns out, yes, I am fat phobic. I'm sure Alex is too. We're both
I
definitely
think I
afraid of fat.
was, yeah.
Yeah.
I think
And
according to the quiz anyways,
mhm.
but
Yeah. And so I decided to look into the creator of the quiz, and she had this video linked right there on the page where she introduced the quiz and what fat phobia was and everything. And what I saw disturbed me. That's why I needed backup. And so I yes. So I brought Alex in, and we're gonna watch this video first and then kind of talk about it and check it out. And Alex is gonna explain some things to me, some of the things that he's seeing. Uh because I'm lost and I'm scared and I need someone to hold my hand.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see here. The more we get into it, her eyes go crazy. She's
Okay.
like that.
Yeah. I will just say I don't think a lot of these people are over it. That's all
No.
I can say. I mean,
No.
you can tell the way I can tell is there's that emotional pitch, which for you, you're a Swiftie. If you feel some I hate it here energy,
Mhm.
that guitar line, that's all you got to look for. And if it's behind what she's saying, then she's still in it. It's that emotional quality, which by the way, Taylor had it too. So
Mm. That makes sense.
that's it.
Okay. So we're gonna see and we're just assuming that you guys understand when we mean by it. Alex, can you give us
Yes.
a very vague description of it that might help people understand what it might be?
Uh, it is E followed by the letter D, toxic ritualistic behaviors. It goes by many names. Uh, but yes,
Yeah.
it's stuff around food and eating
Mhm.
and people eating too much or too little for
Mm.
anxiety disorder related reasons.
Okay, thank you so much for clearing that up for
Mhm.
me and everyone else. And the reason why I decided to look into this woman is if you watch that video where I did took the quiz was all about fat phobia and fat people and treat them with respect and all these different things and obviously treat everyone with respect. But I did not understand why somebody who was clearly so thin was telling people that it was okay to be fat.
Mhm.
And so we're going to figure that out now as we watch this video.
Let's talk about fat phobia today. In particular, what is it? Where does it come from? And how can we ditch fat phobia for good? My name's Sheena, and I am a registered dietitian. And I'm also the creator of the Am I Fat Phobic quiz, which has stirred up so much controversy amongst internet goers and YouTubers. Now, it wasn't really my intention to ruffle any feathers when I was examining fat phobia traits in our culture, but it did. Like most things that I do, there's a lot of people pissed off, apparently. So many so that multiple YouTubers went out of their day to spend several hours to tell me all of the things that were wrong about my horrendous take on all bodies being good bodies.
Okay. Um, let's get to pause it there for a second. Personally, to me, it's already starting to come off as is starting to come unhinged. Like you can see things coming, like pulling apart the seams. At least that's how it feels to me as an Enneagram 3, where you can start like, like I've said before, like presentation is very important to us. And
Mhm.
I feel like I can feel the reactivity starting to seep out.
Well, I think for me, what I can see is somebody who's, I just have to be really real. She's delusional, and it's hard for her to handle any kind of uh, pushback when you are
Mm,
delusional or when something's so loose or so tenuous, not real, not there. Anybody saying something like if somebody were to tell me that I'm not gay, I wouldn't have any reaction because I'd be like, okay, that's really stupid that you think
yeah.
that, but whatever. Like it's not a delusional thing. Like I know that I am. But if it's something like, you know, I have no idea why I'm this weight and I don't really eat that much or something like that.
Mhm.
And it's kind of like, ooh, it gets kind of weird. People do lash out. I know you have some experience of that even in your personal life. So because it is delusional. And when you touch on something that's delusional, people do react. Like you don't have to enforce reality.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's what she's trying to do. She's trying to enforce something that's not real. And so you
Yeah.
have to have that really hardcore feeling.
Yeah, I totally agree because I feel like if she fully supported this and believed in it, she would never have made a response video to begin with. Or at the very least, she'd been like, too bad, so sad, guys. I'm doing it anyways.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Or she could
But
have at least tried to come at it, because you can be reactive and still come
mhm,
at something from a strong place, but
mhm,
she's so like timid.
yeah.
Quality is very weak. The
Mhm,
emotional quality. She's not, I feel like you have one of two lanes. You can either be very like calm or like logical,
mhm.
or you can be like really strong and confident and like more aggressive. And she doesn't have either one. She's just like, she's kind of a flop already within like the first minute. So
Yes,
she's
yeah.
flopping.
Yeah, and the thing is just that people always say, "Oh, you're being so mean," but we have to remember this is somebody who's
Mhm.
actively telling people who are significantly overweight, and Alex and I have been there. It's very unhealthy. It's
Mhm.
near, I don't want to say like death's door. It's something
Mhm.
that I think we should all take very seriously. That we should not be encouraging
Mhm.
people to do things that lead to um, the unaliving of your
Yeah,
body.
and I think in terms of what she's doing, maybe because our society is so, they ignore the binge side of the equation so
Mhm.
much, it might help you to understand what she's really doing if you were to consider somebody that was very restrictive and extremely thin and telling them that that's okay.
Mhm.
That's the
Yeah.
same thing. And it is exactly the same. It's just as delusional on either side. It's the reasons are typically kind of similar. They have to do with control or with an anxiety response and all these different things. And there is a delusion. It's delusional
Mhm.
both ways.
Yeah.
I think either way, it's very delusional. So it's, you're reinforcing somebody's delusion. And I think she may not be as resolved or as healed as she thinks she is.
Mhm.
And she's not in any position to comment on it, in my opinion, because
Mhm.
it's strange. It's strange to be restrictive and talk about how great it is to be fat all the time. It's really bizarre.
Yep.
It's not normal.
Yeah. So let's watch a little bit more and see what she has to
Mhm.
say.
Okay. So I want to start out by saying that I acknowledge that I have a lot of privilege that allows me to sit here freely today and discuss openly on these topics. I understand that I live in a thin body, I'm white, I'm cisgendered, I'm able-bodied, and all of these things allow me to take up space and discuss this in a way that is relatively non-threatening and safe for me to do so. Not every individual has that privilege, and I acknowledge that. While it is great,
I just want to stop there. I'm sorry I'm stopping so quickly,
It's
but
okay.
the taking on of this activism role is also something that really bothers me. When she's talking about like I have to do it because I'm the one with the platform and I'm the one with the who's the most privileged to do
Mhm.
so. It doesn't feel like she's actually doing anyone any favors by doing that.
No, and I think she knows exactly why she's thin. I think
Mhm.
that that's not honest, I guess you could say. Like she's
Mhm.
really trying to push the same delusional lie of like this is purely genetics or something. It's not. And she would know that for damn sure if she
Mhm.
has experience with the other side. We'll just call it the other side. I call it the other side of
The other
this
side.
spectrum. I believe it's a spectrum.
Mhm.
So she knows 100% why she's thin.
Mhm.
And it's very dishonest to, it's just very dishonest. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
She's very clearly lying.
for anyone that feels safe to do so, to advocate for getting rid of fat phobia and welcoming all bodies. It's understandable that there are some bodies where these things are just not safe. So let's start out by acknowledging a quote by the YouTuber Tim Dillon, who states, "The person who invented the fat phobic quiz should be living in a tent. It might be a big tent. Let me make a living being aggressively and annoyingly fat." So I got a real kick out of this because the director of that video automatically assumes that I am a person living in a fat body simply because he hates my ideas.
Why is she bothered by somebody assuming that she's fat?
I don't know. I mean, probably because it's not a great thing to do or be or whatever.
Mhm.
I also think
But all
too,
bodies are great bodies, Alex. She just said so.
well, she's trying to push this like
Mhm.
everybody thinks this way, and it's like, no, hardly anybody does. Like, you have to be really, really disordered
Mhm.
to feel this way. Like, it's very common for people that have the problem to project it onto everyone else. But in reality, with the exception, like I said, I do see a huge uptick in Gen X women specifically. I don't know, there was something going on in the 70s and 80s, in my opinion. There was a lot going on, maybe just like a complete storm of everything that made it such a thing.
Mhm.
But aside from that, it's not that common. You know, like even if you look at a super morbidly obese person, we are not, or I'm not it anymore, but I was for many years, and
Mhm.
it's a low percentage. You know, I think it's
Mhm.
at least less than 10%.
Yeah.
And even within that cohort, not every single person is going to have an E fall by the letter D in that group of people. So it's not like everybody. It's not close to that. I think even for Gen X women, it was 1 in 3, which is really high. But
Yeah.
still, that means, 66%, if even like the highest demographic I've seen, were not, which means the
Mhm.
most people do not have this problem. And that goes for across the spectrum. Most people don't have this. So when she's saying this, she's coming at it, in my opinion, from a perspective that everybody has it.
Mhm.
And so they all think the same way that she does. And that's not true. It's
Yeah,
not
and the thing
true at
is,
all.
and I want to be clear, is like I don't think she would acknowledge that. Like it's weird because we can look at her Instagram page in a little bit because she does talk about both ends of the spectrum on the Instagram page, but at the same time, it's like, okay, so you acknowledge that it exists, but you're saying it's okay that they've gotten to this size by doing this behavior.
Mhm.
And now you're upset that somebody is assuming that you're fat. When you've admitted on your Instagram page that you had the other end of the spectrum's behavior.
The non-disordered response is as follows, which I've actually had to use it on my channel very recently.
Mhm.
It's just the size of my body has nothing to do with the argument. It has nothing to do with how I look. That's
Mhm.
the non-disordered response, because you're making a
Mhm.
logical statement, which again, in her case, it isn't logical. She's not
Mhm.
really pushing anything realistic, which is why she has to kind of base it on this very loose, emotional arguments that aren't really, there's just no logic. She's not
Yeah.
logicking at all because it doesn't matter. Like, and her delivery is really rough. I don't know. Like, I just have to say it's really bad. Like, she's definitely lacking Riz. I just have to be real. It's pretty bad.
Yeah.
She's struggling. I think she's reading a script and she's kind of, it's
Well, that's
pretty
why her
bad.
eyes are looking down. She's clearly reading off page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should have just done a
Um,
voiceover. Anyways.
And nobody that doesn't live in a fat body should think that people in fat bodies should be able to exist and have equal rights and equal access to healthcare and not have to pursue weight loss. So that's interesting right there, is that he basically just says, because he thinks my ideas are shit, I must be fat. Very good example of fat phobia, by the way. So while it sucks, that is often the perspective that is bestowed in some of these videos.
I just want to say really quick, it's exactly as you said, like the argument has nothing to do with the size of your body.
Mhm.
She's inverting what this guy said. Because he
Mhm.
doesn't like her ideas, he's assuming that she's fat. It's like, no, because you're arguing that fat is good, in his head, he cannot imagine anybody would do that
Mhm.
if unless you were also fat. It is a very strange thing to be a thin person telling fat people it's okay to be fat.
It is strange, but like I said, with a lot of the stuff I've looked at this year, I can really see that it is a spectrum because it always goes back to the same types of things. Like I think you'd find a lot of people within BINGE saying, oh, well, you're just naturally that skinny as well. I think it would go both ways very easily. And because they don't care about health. That's one of the biggest things across the entire spectrum is you don't care about it. You don't make it, it's not a big deal. It's not serious. It's a lie. It's this, it's that. And you have to believe that in order to continue the behaviors. Because if you really reckon with the health effects and what's happening to you, you typically stop. I even had to I asked my friend that struggled with the restrictive side, and he said, he just felt horrible. And that's why I stopped, because you just realize how awful you feel, and that's enough. And so you have to ignore it. And it's the same thing on both sides, or on all sides, we should say, because there is a central part of the spectrum, but it's the same thing. You don't feel good. You feel really horrible, and you have to ignore it. And a lot of times on the BINGE side, you would say, well, I'm just this way. I'm genetically this way. This is how everybody is in my family, even if it's not true. It wasn't true in my case, but I still would believe it at the time. You just conveniently leave out anything that doesn't go with it, because the whole point is just to keep you going. It is a duty. It is a commitment, basically. It's awful. It's really hard. But you have to convince yourself. And it's the same thing on the restrictive side. It's probably just as much of a commitment, just as much of a duty. It's a bitch to do. And so you have to fill yourself with you have to fill your mind. Remember, it's a disorder of the mind, not the heart, not the body. It's the mind. Your logic is off or non-existent, honestly.
Yeah, that makes sense why I've never struggled with this, because it literally, it makes so little sense to me that I have to have you constantly explain it to me.
Yeah, because there is no, like I've been saying it on my channel a lot, there's no credit. There's nothing to give. It's not coming from anything that makes any sense. It doesn't. And you have to rely on emotional arguments to basically try to shame somebody else into silence. That's basically the only thing that you have. And you try to keep it a secret. That's why you keep it a secret, because you don't want to stop. And then that's the same across the spectrum too. All of them do that. So yeah, she probably did it too. She might even still be doing it. Like I said, when people talk like this, I am very skeptical about their recovery. It's bizarre to me,
for sure,
as well.
Yeah, let's take a further look.
That I am observing retaliating against my fat phobia quiz. Another common theme that I am noticing is the theme of healthism. Healthism. Healthy. Everybody needs to be healthy. And therefore, this author of this quiz doesn't know jack shit, because they are telling everybody that they don't need to be healthy or pursue health. Because if you're fat, you can't be healthy. Those two things cannot be synonymous. So this is diet culture's evil ploy into making sure that we keep fat phobia alive and well. Because looking at somebody and saying, oh, okay, this person is in a fat body, so therefore they must be unhealthy and they must be actively working to change that. And if I don't tell them that they shouldn't be in a fat body, even if they are perfectly metabolically healthy, then I'm a piece of shit. It's actually the exact opposite, right? It's like, oh, okay, you want to go and save the day for a person that's literally just trying to fucking exist in their body by telling them all these guru things about healthy? Which, let's get started on that term in general. My least favorite terminology as a registered dietitian and medical provider for the last decade.
That's
I
really
hate
scary.
the word healthy. It is my least favorite word. Why? Because it has no operational definition. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger to make sure nobody fucking needs it. I dare you to ask 25 healthcare providers what it means to be healthy, and you will not get the same answer twice. And it is.
Yeah. Basically what you said had nothing to do with health, and then she went on that rant.
She doesn't care. You don't care
Yeah.
about it. So
Yeah.
it's we don't care. Don't bring it up to me. Because why? Because if it's brought up, then you usually will stop
Mhm.
because it's scary. Health is something that is very obvious to most people, especially if you don't have it, then it becomes very real, very
Yeah.
fast. And it would be the same for her. She started passing out, falling to the floor all the time. She's injuring her head because she can't stay up. She can't stand up properly because her blood pressure is too low or whatever the hell. Who even knows? I saw you showed me her Instagram. She said that she was hospitalized, but she doesn't know what health is. She has no clue. That's called a lie. She's
Yeah.
lying. She's a huge liar. And there's a lot of lies within all of the disorders too. That's one major thing.
Mhm.
You lie about it. She's constantly lying about it. And for
Mhm.
her, I think she has to have some kind of an awareness to it, which there are cases where people are totally delusional, especially on the BING side. There are people, a lot of times, at least on that side of the spectrum, people have no idea they have it. There's zero
Mhm.
concept that you
Mhm.
have it. You have no clue, zero awareness. Usually with the restrictive side, it's so pervasive in culture, it's very hard to be totally delusional about it because
Mhm.
people are always on your ass about it. People are always talking to you about it. It's actually the opposite of what she's
Mhm.
saying. People don't get on your ass if you have BING, hardly at all in comparison.
Yeah. Well, they don't. A lot of people are not even aware that the person's disordered if it's the
Mhm.
BINGE. They'll just go default to this person eats too much or they're lazy or they don't take care of themselves. They don't think, oh, there could actually be a huge mental issue going on here.
Or
And
they'll
which,
think it's
yeah,
genetic,
or
which
yeah,
is
or that.
terrible.
I'm just talking about
Yeah.
like the person looking outside in and
Mhm.
versus you, if somebody is in a first world country intentionally looking underweight, everyone will notice. The emotional timbre of her voice,
Mhm.
you can see is starting to get to that unhinged level.
Mhm.
And when she talks about how you ask like 10 different medical providers, what health is, they give 10 different answers. I'm like, yeah, they can all phrase it differently, but I have a feeling like when it comes to this kind of level of unhingedness, this is something I do understand with people is they will go to somebody and the person won't give them an answer that they like. So they'll ask them in a different way and then they'll get an answer in a different way. And they'll see like, haha, I've caught you, versus not realizing it's them who's actually asking the question differently. And I know that sounds like a weird way of saying it, but the whole point is that she needs to be told what she wants to hear. And so she's going to
Mhm.
be looking for what she wants to hear.
Mhm.
And what she wants to hear is you can be healthy at any size. You can be healthy if you do this, you be healthy if you do that. And the only thing that matters is your metabolic blood test, right? Those blood tests. My blood tests are normal, right?
Mhm.
But when she says that they don't know what it is, that part cracks me up as somebody who like I do have a disability and I do go to the doctor all the
Mhm.
time, and they literally have standards for every single
Mhm.
little thing. Okay.
It's true.
Standards are
That's a
what's
good point.
healthy. It's like if you're not here, that's unhealthy.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's a very good point.
Is ever escalating, right? So most people start with, well, being healthy means you're free of disease. They're
She's
literally telling you
projecting.
being healthy means something
Yeah.
that you do not have in the absence of something, which is up in my opinion. But so you do not have these things. But even if you meet that, and especially when it comes to fat phobia and examining people that might need that and are living in fat bodies, is even when they say, okay, great, I'm metabolically healthy, I don't have diabetes, I don't have heart disease, I run a mile every day, awesome. Okay, well, the term healthy comes in to save the day and make sure that fat phobia is still alive and well, and says, well, but you could get these things And also, let's
You
talk
will.
about your
It's not
physical
good.
mobility, your flexibility, and just keeps building, because that's the beauty of the term healthy is
No, you just keep deteriorating over time.
Yeah.
They
Well,
look
and also
at,
she's
yeah.
what super morbidly obese person is running a mile every day? It was weird that she
It's,
said that.
yeah, that was weird. And I think she's projecting because that's something that she did. She had an unattainable standard, or
Mhm.
it kept getting crazier and crazier. That doesn't mean that everybody's going to be like that at
Yeah.
all. And so it's just ridiculous. It's she's projecting onto everybody. Fat in and of itself is hormonally active. It affects your mood. I think it can affect your personality. It can change you because it really, especially if you have so much on you, like it is a gradient, right? Like it's not as bad if you're like 20 pounds overweight versus 200. It's totally different.
Mhm.
And it's like when you look at it from a super morbidly obese perspective, it is a lot on you. It's a lot of hormones. You can get to a point where your body fat is more than the rest of your whole body, which means that your fat is stronger than the rest of your body. That's when you're at like plus 50, 50
Yeah.
plus. And especially
Mhm.
like when you get really huge, you can be like 600 pounds. Who knows what their body fat percentage is, right? Like it's a whole other level. It can continue to get worse. But the point is, like, it is hormonally active. Even if you just have the size and nothing else is happening, you're probably still depressed. You're probably still having weird issues. There's breathing problems with sleeping. There is structural issues. You're probably having social consequences of it. There's a lot of stuff that goes into
Mhm.
it that is not just quote unquote fat phobia. It could be like you're more reactive than you typically would be. You could be more angry or fearful than you typically would be. That will affect you socially, regardless of fat phobia. So these are things that do happen when it gets to be a certain size. And
Mhm.
especially, in my opinion, through a disordered means, because you typically will also have a fatty liver, which that makes it even more hormonal. So there are so many different gradients to what could make it that much worse. And if you are BINGing, you probably have a fatty liver. It will give you a fatty liver. That will make
Yikes.
your hormones even worse. So,
Yeah.
and that causes a lot of metabolic syndrome. It's usually one of the first steps in a lot of different problems. So
Yeah.
basically, to put it all together, her advice for somebody with BINGE issues is complete trash, and it is so far off base. It's literally the exact opposite of reality. That's basically how I could put it.
doesn't actually mean anything. So we can literally use it to scrutinize anybody we want to. Now, people in thin bodies, they usually get a free pass. We don't actually care if they're healthy or not, because we're not going to go in, dig, and
That's a
investigate that, because their
projection.
bodies
Yeah.
make us comfortable. So we don't need to come and save the day when it's a person living in a thin body. And that, my friends, is not only what propels fat phobia in our systems and our everyday lives, but also in the healthcare sector.
I just want to say really quick, when I first clicked on this video, I was not expecting to see this woman because she had a much nicer picture of herself on the website. And when I clicked on this video, the first thing I thought was like, oh my gosh, she does not look healthy.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that as an insulting way. I mean,
Mhm.
like, her skin looks sallow. Everything's kind of dulled, and it could be very bad lighting. But at the same time, I mean, when she says like nobody investigates thin people investigate thin people all the time, because if you
Mhm.
look extremely pale, if you look like, that
Mhm.
your eyes are like matte, people are going to say something. They're going to be, are you okay? If you are severely underweight, people are going to say something.
Mhm. They absolutely do. And
Yeah.
it probably happened to her. So she
Hmm.
knows that. So she's lying.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like, no, I agree with you. She doesn't look very well. But based on how she's talking, really questioning her recovery. I don't see
Hmm.
a recovered person here. I just
Yeah.
don't.
The doctor sees a person in a thin body, that person comes in and they say, okay, well, you're experiencing GI distress, let's get you to maybe a gastroenterologist. Let's maybe get some labs done, some tests run. Okay, that person that is in a thin body, maybe get some health care. Person comes in, if they're in a fat body experiencing the same symptoms, they might say, also, if you lost weight, your gut health would be a lot better. So don't get health care for the same things. That is called fat phobia. Health is
Okay. And once again, I feel like I'm always the best person to dispute this because I do have so many health issues. Some related to my weight and many that are not at all
Mhm.
related to my weight. And there's only been like a handful of instances where that's happened. And all I did was go to the next doctor, and the next doctor's like, "What?" And then they took care of it, you know? And I know that's
Right.
still rough, especially if you're like on something like Medicaid, where it takes longer to get a new doctor, and that can suck. But it's not as prevalent as she
Yeah.
thinks it is. Because I go to my primary care doctor and I'm like, I'm having this issue. And she doesn't say, okay, lose weight.
Mhm.
She's literally never
Well,
told
to
me to
me,
lose weight.
that's
Yeah.
very, it's
Yeah.
kind of dated. It's kind of
Hmm.
something that would happen like in 2004.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since then, and they never update how they think about things
Hmm.
ever. They're
Yeah.
stuck in 2002 or whatever. Like
Yeah.
they're stuck back then. So I think I can remember kind of when it was like that, but
Hmm.
it was a long ass time ago. It was a
Yeah.
very long time ago.
And people have to understand that we live in like the most litigious country in the world. And so a lot of these changes happen because anybody who was doing things like that likely got sued by the
Mhm,
patient or the patient's family. Because
mhm.
that would be like negligent healthcare.
Oh,
And that's why they have to look at all avenues. They still have to
mhm,
remind you of your weight because your weight is still a
mhm,
factor. If they say this could be weight related, it's perfectly fine if they say that, but but they don't only just rely on it. And like I said,
mhm,
I can only literally name one doctor. Like, yeah, I'm thinking literally like really like one doctor who refused to test me because I was fat. And I went back to my primary care doctor and I told her that, and I told her the reason. And she was appalled. And so she ordered
mhm,
the test instead. And that doctor that I was visiting, she was like 65 or something. So she was really old. So it is kind of like a very old mentality.
mhm.
And I don't think we should, just because things were bad in one way in the past, doesn't apply, in my opinion, today, when in the past there were fewer fat people and
Mhm.
today there's even more. So it's like your logic is completely inverted. With more, you would think you would see more.
Yes,
You
that's
actually
true,
don't.
and it's even less.
Yeah.
Right. That's a very good point as well.
Hmm.
fat phobia, all the things. Okay, so that is that is one of the big things that these naysayers for my quiz that have created these very elaborate videos. By the way, I thank you all for your time and actually delving in and investing into my quiz. But that is one of the main things that they use to counter some of the ideas that I have proposed to dismantle fat phobia. And I get it, right? We are all raised from birth to scrutinize fat bodies. So we're not going to go out and actively tell somebody like you shouldn't be fat, right? But we're going to take a lot of efforts to make sure that we're not fat, sometimes to a dangerous level and ways for it impacts everyone.
And
So
what's
there's
the percentage
all
of that?
sorts of
That's what I
sneaky
would
ways
ask
that
her.
fat
It's not that high.
phobia
Yeah.
comes into play. And we'll just kind of briefly go over the different types of fat phobia, but they all kind of interlink and they keep each other alive. So there's interpersonal fat phobia. So that's how we feel about ourselves, right? Do we think we're fat? How does our body compare to other bodies? Are we actively trying to lose weight and sometimes even taking extreme measures to get there, which might impact our relationships, our health, all of the things. Then there's
So when she talks about interpersonal fat phobia and how we think about ourselves, when I was reading through that on the quiz and basically some of the things that she said here, it's like I have never, as somebody who's never had the behavior, I literally never like spent that much time comparing myself to other people. Everybody compares themselves to some extent, but
Yeah.
I don't walk into a room. I think the quiz question she has, like, you walk into a room and like you're like a size 26 in a room full of sixes, and it's like basically, you would have less power. I think that's something that she was talking about. And I've been in that situation so many times, and I don't walk into a room and think, oh, I'm the fattest person here, when I was a
Yeah,
size 26.
it's a disordered thing
Yeah.
to do. Like again, it's always gradient, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you can do it sometimes and it's not, but if it's like any room you walk into, any environment you're in, and like I've had that before.
Mm-hmm.
But there are times where I will compare now, but it's very specific and it's not ever, I don't know. Like I don't think about it. I think that's the thing too. You just don't think about how big other people are all the time.
Yeah.
It's like usually within very specific contexts, like
Mm-hmm.
extremely specific. Like it could have to do with like a romantic pursuit or something like that. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
that's a situation where it would come up. But again, that would come up for most people. And it's not always going to be a disordered thing. But if it's like you literally walk into a room full of strangers and that's the first thing you think about, that is a red flag. That's kind of
Yeah.
not normal. I don't think that is normal.
Yeah. And I will say, like,
Mhm.
the anxiety part of it must be huge. So I do have like anxiety. I have like OCD, but the that's completely unrelated to like my weight. The but I'm just thinking, like, for example, being in grad school where my grad program was like literally 39 women, and I would say maybe 35 of them were between sizes 2 and 6 and beautiful and had really nice hair. And I did compare myself to them a little bit, but
Mhm.
never like really, I never really thought about the weight part of it. It was always like, geez, how do they keep themselves together? I feel like I'm falling apart. It was always things like that
Mhm.
because they would come in every day with like perfect makeup and perfect hair.
Mhm.
And
Well, and
and I yeah.
I think
Mhm.
even on a weight level, it could
Mhm.
be not disordered, but
Yeah.
it's just one thing in a list of other things. And I think
Mhm.
that's what is important
Yeah.
to remember. Is it on such a pedestal? In the
Mhm.
way that she's describing it in that quiz, I've done that before. I
Mhm.
have been that person where I've looked in every single room, every single environment. Is there somebody fatter than me in here?
Mhm.
Am I the only fat person in here? That is something that does come up within that disorder. It does come up because you're always thinking about it all the time. And I think people don't understand how much people actually think about it.
Mhm.
It's all the time. And the reason why is why? So that you continue the behavior. It's all to keep it moving. You have to, because it's so awful and unpleasant to do the stuff that you have to constantly reinforce it. And you use your body image to do that. That's
Yeah.
why. That's why it comes up. So you're just like, oh gosh, I'm sure you maybe compared for like a second in a day, one
Mhm.
time, day one, maybe for like a half set, like a breath or something, and then you
Yeah.
moved on. That's
Mhm.
normal. But if it's like every single room you go into all the time, every single thing, and you're always thinking about other people's sizes and all this stuff, that's where it becomes something different.
Yeah.
Because typically, if you're going to think about size, it should be about your own. Or like I said, maybe you're comparing an extremely specific context.
Mhm.
Like you have an enemy or something and you hate them and you're thinner than them now. I'm not going to shade somebody for that. I don't know if it is totally not disordered. It's a little toxic, but it's not necessarily disorder. So I'm trying to say. But if it's like I'm walking into a room and every room I look, I have to check, that is like that's a
Yeah.
disorder. You see, so there's a gradient to these things too. And you do have to meet a criteria. So like I've always talked about too, like when people look at themselves in the mirror, for example, it's like, are you looking deeply for like over an hour? It's like if you are, that's a very big red flag. But if it's like 10 minutes or like 5 minutes, no. Like that's normal.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever looked in the mirror myself
Mhm.
unless I was like doing makeup because I had to like
Well,
do that.
yeah, like,
Yeah.
but that
Like
I'm talking like
yeah.
specifically like
Mhm.
your weight or
Mhm.
these types of things. that can be a thing. And sometimes for me, it still can happen within weight loss and this type of stuff. Like, I think honestly, today I looked at it for like 30 minutes or something. Like, I was looking at pictures and stuff, and I do have to be mindful of that. But that's why weight loss can be a struggle with people with, you know, binge and all that stuff, for people who come out of it. And I do have some residual effects still, but again, I can say it. I can be very honest about it. I'm not hiding it or anything. That's a sign that it's over, and it didn't change how I ate. That's the big one. That's a major one, right? So there was no change. And it was just something I was looking at just because I'm like, I'm mid now, you know. It was just kind of more so just like strategizing, okay, like I want to go to the gym and I want to work this area out more in this area. Like, it's just really basically that. But it's still like coolly logical. I wasn't like agonizing over it. Oh gosh. Like, you have to look at the quality too. So if it's a cold logical assessment, that's not that big of a deal. If it's like I'm agonizing over it, you know, like when you look in the mirror to do your makeup, you're not agonizing over your makeup. That's weird. It's the same thing. If you're looking at your weight, it should just be like, okay.
Yeah. I always make jokes that I'm agonizing over the size of my thighs, but
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's the thing too. It's like, it's okay. You know, you're supposed to get to a point where, like, I'm not affected by you doing that, Lisa. I'm not.
I know.
You know, and it's like, I shouldn't be, and nobody should be. You need to get over it. That's not something she would want to hear, though. She'd be like,
oh no. No, she would tell me my thighs are perfect the way they are, and I'm like, no.
And don't ever say that. Don't say that around me. I don't want to hear it. Right. That would be her thing. But that's
for
because
sure.
she'd want to start doing it to herself or whatever. You know, she'd start getting weird.
Oh, for sure. And for me, it's like the like I agonize over my thighs. I don't think about it all day long. It literally I only ever think about it in the context of when I'm where I'm going to put on pants and I'm looking through the pant sizes about which one's going to fit me that day. And I'm okay, what's going to work? Okay, well, that one doesn't fit, so I'm going to put this one on, you know? And so I'm like, oh, my thighs are too big.
Yes.
You know,
And
but
again, people don't get it, but I'm talking like staring in the mirror, agonizing for an hour or longer. Sometimes it can be like 4 hours. Like, that's pretty bad, but it does happen. That's people just, the way that people like her have talked about it, it's like, if you do anything ever, it's like, no, I'm talking, you walk into every single room and you compare who is fat and who isn't. That is disordered. You're every single one, right? It's not an occasional first day of work, first situation. No, I'm talking every situation, every room, every doctor's office, every person's house, every single class you go to, you know, everything.
Yeah.
And it's just a part of like a running commentary constantly. And most people are not like that. It's not that common. And people try to act like everybody has it, but it's because people that have it project. That's why. And so she's constantly projecting. And it's like, hun, no.
It makes sense.
That's too much. Yeah.
Yikes.
Interpersonal fat phobia. So how do we view other bodies? Do we spend a lot of time body checking other people, particularly people in fat bodies, having fear of
Maybe she
gaining
did.
weight?
She does.
Are we that quote unquote healthy hero that's going to come save the day and tell people how to exercise more and eat fruits and vegetables, even if they're completely metabolically sound? That would be a good example of interpersonal fat phobia. And then there's institutional fat phobia. So that is where our public spaces are concerned. You know, if a person in a fat body wants to get onto an airplane, is there accessible space? Is there accessible chairs and dining areas, and so on and so forth? And all of these things, like I said, kind of compound on one another and they interlap. So if we have really strong interpersonal fat phobia, well, we've got a deep fear of gaining weight, we're probably not going to believe that a person that is in a larger body deserves space in public spaces, because everybody should be trying to shrink their bodies, right? According to the fat phobia dogma. So just a few things to consider when you're thinking about your relationship with your body, other bodies, and whether or not we have fat phobic tendencies that we want to ditch for good.
I want to bring up really quick what she said of this very strange thing. I've seen this more than once. This strange thing where they're like, fat bodies don't belong in public spaces, and then they use the example of private airlines.
Private airlines?
Yeah, like if you're buying an airline ticket, that's for a private company. It's not a
Oh,
public
okay. I thought you were
space.
saying like a private plane. I was like,
No, like it's like it's
oh
not a public
yeah, that's
space.
true though. You're right.
Yeah, and
When
so
it,
yeah, go
I
ahead.
mean, most people, the vast majority of people have accommodation. I mean, we have to be
Mhm.
realistic about that too. She's acting like it's the TikTokification. She's acting like everybody out there is 450 pounds. That's not true. It's very rare, actually. Like, you have to really look for it. Even in Alabama, I have to look for it. You see it more often, for
Yeah,
sure,
in
probably than
Alabama.
like Beverly Hills,
Yeah,
or if you were in East Asia, for example, you probably almost never see it. But it's like, even here, where it's the most common probably in the entire world, it's not that common because it's awful. And most people, when they start to gain like that, they turn it around. You have to
yeah,
have something wrong because it's
yeah,
it's a lot.
yeah.
And yeah. Okay.
I
Anyways.
will say in East Asia, I was the fattest person in every single room.
Yeah, well, gosh, if that was a trigger for you, you would have had to have dealt with it by now. My
Oh
gosh,
yeah. Yeah, I just
for
like I
sure.
honestly it's one of those funny things, just like I would honestly forget that I was fat in Japan until I had to sit in a tiny little area and I was like, "Oh, I can't fit." Like a tiny little seat. I was like, "Oh, I'm just gonna stand."
Yeah.
And it was always when I was confronted with that sizing. But like I made a point in this in one of my other videos is that like I wasn't gonna go to the country of Japan and then like a country I'm not a citizen of that I was staying in with a visa and be like conform to me.
Mhm.
Like, that just seemed completely ridiculous
Right.
to me.
It is
I
kind of
had
ridiculous.
clothes shipped from the US. I wasn't gonna expect clothes to be available for me there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's check out her Instagram page really quick and just see some of the stuff that she has on there that I kind of like found frankly a little appalling. Um,
Yeah, I'm
like she
sure.
has this one right here for the binge where she's eating like is that a ho ho? No, or is that a cupcake? I have no idea. I don't
I
think that's
think
that.
I don't
Hostess
even
cupcake.
remember. Yeah, I think it's a
Yeah.
cupcake.
But she's
Um,
making this point that you don't lack willpower if you have a binge. But I want to know what she thinks causes it.
she's saying you've taught your body it can't trust you. The more you try to willpower it away, the more intense and more frequent they're likely to get. Trust me, I've done it all. I don't trust her for anything. I don't trust anything
No.
she's saying, for one. She's a huge liar. For two, she acts like I don't know what health is, even though she's been in the hospital. It's like, girl, you're a liar. Second of all, you can willpower it away. It's a trigger, it's an
Mhm.
anxiety response that you don't have to listen to. And on my channel, I have a video where I talk about what it is. I talk about what is toxic ritualistic behavior. And one of the suggestions I give is to break the ritual, even in a very small way, which
Mhm.
the example I gave was, if you're constantly eating all the popcorn, leave a single thing of popcorn and
Mhm.
don't finish the whole thing. That's enough to elicit an anxiety response. It's not about the food, it's about control, and it's about the ritual. It's about doing something over and over again. It's very repetitive. It's all the stuff. That's
Yeah.
what it's about. So if even just not eating that last bit of popcorn, that or even not eating the whole cupcake, that could be a step to breaking up the ritual and understanding that it's not necessary at all. But it does take willpower to do that
Mhm.
because you're not going to want to. So
Yeah.
she's completely wrong.
Yeah. And then she
Mhm.
I mean, we just watch it. What most people know about me is I struggled with E by fall by the letter D for 15 years. Yeah, 15 years. It sent me to the hospital more than once. Everyone loved my E followed by the letter D. I was praised for being thin, more than any other accomplishment. I rebel now by teaching others how to recover. And I frankly find that offensive. She's talking about this, being praised for being underweight, essentially, for being thin, because she's trying to associate being thin with being underweight, which is not the same thing, you know?
Mhm.
And, but yet the overwhelming majority of her content is focused at fat people.
Mhm. Which is bizarre.
Yeah.
And I do agree that on the restrictive side, there can be a enforcement mechanism with other people, or there is like, it's seen as a way to get approval.
Mm-hmm.
But on the binge side, it's the exact opposite. It's seen as a form of rebellion.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're seeking massive approval or you're seeking rebellion, is the problem gone? No, it may have just shifted. Why is she seeking to rebel so much? I don't even think she is. I think she's just a liar. Like I said, I don't think she's recovered at all.
Yeah.
But that same drive to please others, quote unquote, within the restrictive side, it's the same drive to rebel against others. And it tends to be on a binge side, it tends to be your secret indulgence, or like a rebellious thing where I have such a restrictive life that this is something I can do to say fuck everyone else. And that's honestly a lot of people with that side of the disorder. But on the other side, it can be like more people pleasery and like, oh, I want this too, but not always. I mean, you can have people all across the board. I'm just saying that's a more common experience of both sides, but there are people pleasers who will eat a lot to subvert anxiety around like not being or like trying to please others, you know what I mean? So it can work that way too, just as it can be a form of rebellion if everybody's telling you you have to eat, you say you. So it can work either way, but either way, it's bad. It shouldn't be something that when you're disordered, you want it to be all anyone else talks to you about. It shouldn't be something like that. You should just be a human being. It's called just being a human.
Yeah, that reminds me of the people in my life who've asked me questions like, "What's your blah blah plan for this thing?" And I was like, "I didn't have one,"
Mm-hmm.
as far as like how I was going to change my body in some way, And I mean, yes, obviously I'm dieting and stuff, but it's never like, "Oh, I'm going to lose weight." I'll make a joke like I'm going to lose weight for Austin, or I'm going to lose weight for Nashville. These are things that Alex will talk about, but I'm not losing weight specifically for that. I'm losing weight for my health.
Mm-hmm.
But there's this idea that a lot of people have, like, I have to look a certain way for a certain situation because I'm going to feel embarrassed or I'm going to feel anxiety. And I've had those people in my life, and I've never understood that. So I do appreciate you always coming in and educating me, Alex, because I know
Mm-hmm.
it's so illogical, as you always
It
say.
is.
And
It really is.
I'm like as air as you get. You're like, or go to astrology. It's like I am half my chart is full of air, and so it's so hard for me to comprehend.
Yes, and
the
it's
non-air parts of things.
totally illogical. They're all illogical. There's no basis in reality. Like it's very kind of superstitious. Like that's a good quality to it. It's just anxious, and it's usually interpersonally. It involves a lot of gaslighting, emotional manipulation, secrecy, and even sometimes hostility or bullying to get somebody to shut up about it or don't talk to me about this. Yeah. It's very nasty.
So they're definitely very interesting, and it scares the crap out of me. So I appreciate it. Well, thank you so much, Alex.
You're welcome.
Thanks for coming by. I appreciate it. Have a great night.
Bye.